talking about it. We just lost you in between. So
Right.
we were talking about the initial cash flows and what kind of difficulties and challenges. I mean, somebody would want to take this up as a career might face. So we were just covering that. So you can continue.
Yeah. So first of all, someone who's interested in art can pick up the kind of art he wants to do, the medium, and practice it, and better his skills, which will give him a better position in the market, so as to speak. And the various ways artists can monetize their art is one is you create a series of works that you feel are important for you, the themes that are important for you, and then selling online is a new practice now. Tying up with, so there are various websites where you can actually upload the pictures and try to sell. They also sometimes guide you. So there is Saffron Art and Christie's and Sotheby's and a lot of other websites which have platforms for artists. So that is one way. They'll guide you on the pricing also. So that's one way to kind of sell your art. Another idea is to tie up with a gallery. So gallery will promote you as an artist, which is the traditional way how artists have been working. So you tie up with the gallery and gallery helps you promote and also sell the art. The third idea, which is something I've been doing, is doing commissioned art, where I get invited into a project to create something which suits that particular space. So that's the third kind, which is probably the easiest to monetize, which is something I've been following for all these years. So I work on the projects as well as I work on my own ideas. I kind of got this sort of a model from, let's say, a personality like A.R. Rahman, where he gets invited to create a melody or a song for a given situation in the movie. And then he also has these melodies or self-expression where he creates his own album, so he works on these two different sort of parameters. But probably what really gives him a good cash flow is the commission work, So yeah, so that's the model that I have been following for all these years. Third way, I mean, there's one more thing I believe, that you do art for your soul, betterment of your energy, and the experience of life itself, because something you have expressed and people appreciate, that gives you energy. So art is basically done for that, and in appreciation of that, the sale happens actually. So directly looking art to convert it into money is not a very correct way of thinking, because it might not directly or easily convert into the cash flow. Having said that, I feel if you are consistent with a particular medium, then over the years people recognize you as proficient in that, and then it starts getting monetized. But what you get right then and there is the satisfaction that you've done something. So I would say,
Right. So Hetal, I've seen you that you've been fascinated with things which are large and magnificent in terms of scale and size. So, I mean, I've been fascinated about this thing wherein you use public spaces to project your art and beautify the space. So what is your idea about it? Have you done anything similar in the public space? of beautifying cities, or you have drawn any inspiration from other cities which you can possibly emulate elsewhere?
Yeah. In fact, what I do at Kalagoda is kind of a art in public space, even though it's just restricted to that time frame of the festival of Kalagoda festival, but it's art in public space. And I think art in public space is a great idea because um, when art is confined into an environment, let's say an art gallery, there is a very limited kind of people who visit art gallery because it's an intimidating experience to enter into an art gallery, you know. And art is something, in fact, one of the reasons I started working on conceptual art, where you have a write up along with my art object. The reason behind that is I saw a lot of people in the gallery completely confused about what the art means, and they're shy to ask the artist, also trying to understand because they feel that they might sound stupid or something like that. So art is always looked upon as touch me not kind of a subject when it comes to spaces like galleries or even high-end corporate or a hotel where you see art and you just nod and move ahead. Or if you're in a gallery, you just keep sipping wine and probably discuss markets and other things, but you're not really talking about that art. So it's a very sensitive issue, and it doesn't have a lot to do with the art, but it's about the space where the art is exhibited. It's in a high-end gallery, and that space kind of restricts you. The crowd restricts you. But when the art is out there in the public, you are not inhibited by. I mean, you're not intimidated by the your express. That's what I think is. So that's what I think is the advantage of having art in public spaces. Even the Dharavi Biennale that I talked about, it was art in public spaces where public people interact. I'm looking at getting commissioned for permanent public art where I want to work with the context of the space. For example, an area, the name of the area, the history of the area, that particular spot. There is a context that will guide the idea behind my art. And so yeah, that's my idea behind public art. And the write-up that goes along with it clearly explains what the thought behind the piece is. So anyone who's not into art it actually bridges the gap between a non-art kind of a viewer and the art viewer. In fact, he can start including himself into a person who actually gets what art is. And that's what my effort has been, Yeah. Because I believe that art is basically, transferring the inspiration that you got as an artist and you were excited about expressing it. So if you are able to transfer that same energy of inspiration to the viewer, I think your job is done as an artist, and that's my effort.
Right. There's also a cost involved to the art, especially because of the scale in which you do these kind of projects. Do you think art is expensive, or it can have another alternative?
So for public spaces, as you said, there is an alternative. Art is, of course, expensive. I mean, there are two sides to it, which that I would address. But first of all, in public spaces, crowdfunding can be one interesting way that money can be generated for the art in a particular space. And then there are also companies and sponsors always ready to get connected with the art because it draws people, it draws attention. So a little bit of branding along with it, I don't mind if they are ready to fund. So that's one way to do it. If the artist has to fund all the art by himself, it kind of becomes a little difficult. I also believe that doing something else along with art for your livelihood is a good idea, which usually the galleries don't agree. They want you to survive only out of your art, which is a bad idea, because then the purity of your expression towards your art can get contaminated by the idea of selling it. But if you have some source of income supporting you, then you can exhibit your art in the purest form without really worrying about how many people are going to buy it. And then finally, it might eventually find its own buyer. So crowdfunding is one thing, which is probably a new way people can think who are interested in having something in their area. And for example, the Eiffel Tower was supposed to be a temporary piece of art, and then now it's become, one of the wonders of the world. So where art which is better can actually go to any length in terms of its importance. So yeah, the other question that you asked me is the art is expensive. So I've been dwelling with this idea of aesthetics and art, and why is art expensive? Because a lot of people ask me that why is it so expensive? Once they feel comfortable discussing with me, they'll ask this. They wouldn't have asked this in an art gallery because they might sound stupid. They get things. And to this, I feel art is expensive because of the artist that has created it. So if you see from the expense point of view, there's not much to inside the art. It's got more to do with the artist and his brand and his popularity and his importance in the art world, in the history of art. So it's got to do with the artist more than the art. Just like any other brand, amongst mobiles, Apple is expensive because, it is guided by a particular philosophy, and it's important in the history of mobiles, arrival of Apple and backed by Steve Jobs. So the same kind of holds true in the art world as well. So that's why, I feel art is expensive because of the artist, and there's less to do with the material used on the canvas or, the theme or the content of the art. Of course, the content of the art is a great thing, but I think the value is always defined by the artist more than the artwork.
Right. And to talk about art, there's a very, there's a discussion of sorts wherein they try to draw comparison between art and crime in a way, because you cannot use your expression anywhere and everywhere, especially in public places. But I won't really ask you about that. I want to ask you about the color clothing that you normally present. Everything is in black. So is there something to it? Any philosophy?
Yes. So again, now I think you've asked about the art and the crime thing. I remember when I was in UK, I was studying there. This was in early 2000, and that's the time I was really inspired by an artist called Banksy. And Banksy is basically a street artist. He's a graffiti artist in the UK. And basically the graffiti artists contribute a lot to the art crime in the world, because they perform on other people's assets, which are probably not welcome all the time. And that's why the police is always behind them. And so they have a hidden name, hidden identity. So the most interesting thing about Banksy was that his identity is hidden till date. No one knows who he really is. It's just his graffiti name called Banksy that appears on the artwork. So I was inspired by him because he always has a statement to make. There's a very clear message behind his artwork, and it's got a satirical message. So a very poetic kind of approach, which I was inspired by, and his art is inspired from real life, and it's It's kind of a statement that he's putting out there in the public. He's making people think about a particular issue. And that's exactly what I do with my ambassador cars. I mean, I've not been doing so much of graffiti, but it's also, my car is also like a street art because it's on the street and it talks about these issues, you know. So yeah, I've been inspired by that sort of a genre of art. I think it's great because they are able to express. They do it in other people's property, and that is a crime. But for last 2 or 3 years, the story is kind of changed because graffiti artist Banksy that I was following for so many years, recently his work got sold for a huge amount at Christie's auction, and probably that's one of the very of finding a roadside graffiti artist getting sold at an auction for that kind of a price. And he's a prime minister. So in fact, he managed to put a device into his painting that as soon as the auction, the hammer went down and it got sold, the piece kind of slides down and it gets shredded into pieces of paper and it's destroyed. And there was a big news that, you know, after purchase, artwork destroyed itself, kind of a thing. But it also turned out that it was then probably sold for even bigger cost after this destruction, because that sort of an event had happened first time in the history of auctions. And later on, I've also heard of instances where, in fact, when I was in UK, I saw that Banksy's work was also protected with an acrylic sheet, which was not put up by Banksy. It was put up by someone in the neighborhood or someone important in that place. So people had started protecting his work then. And recently, I've heard of someone actually cutting that piece of a wall where he had sprayed with spray cans and exporting it to New York and selling it in an auction. And it was always questioned whether who's the owner of that thing, because the compound wall belonged to some building, and the building was again patched up. And usually the government doesn't want the graffiti, so they get rid of the graffiti. And because there is no identity of the artist, so he's also not the owner. So there was a big confusion about this thing, but it got sold at an auction also. So times are changing, values, ethics, and what is possible also kind of on the gray lines. And I think artists have always been pushing the boundaries of, you know, what's possible and what they stand for. So that's about the graffiti artist. Secondly, you asked me about the black clothes.
Yeah, a lot of things happen, but then what is your thing about the black clothing?
Yeah, so for last 7 years, I've been wearing black clothes almost every single day. And whenever I have my interactions with my clients at corporates or galleries, I'm always wearing black t-shirt and black pant. So I remember this one day I was talking to a corporate, giving him gyan about, you know, consistency of colors to enhance their brand, and the idea of consistency that you need to carry into, you know, your environment through art and all that. He questioned me about how consistent I was with my brand, and was there anything that I was doing to enhance my brand, and I had nothing to answer him. That left me thinking about what is it that I can do to to actually implement this wisdom that I keep giving people. That's when I decided that I'll wear black every single time, and this has really worked. Also, one of the reasons I wear black is I'm not a tall guy, I'm a short guy. So rather than dividing the entire body mass into two different colors of shirt and pant, I said if I have one color, it enhances the visual feeling of the height that I have. Also, my skin tone, black complements my skin tone a lot. It also helps the viewer focus on my expression more than my dress, because it's plain black. There is nothing which distracts a person in terms of patterns, colors, checks, or whatever. So it kind of makes an impact there. Black also works for me for different, because my day is kind of crazy. I start in the morning, I have a couple of meetings at the corporates, and then I will suddenly go on site, and things are not happening. I'll probably pick up the painting there, or helping someone and stuff like that. And I'll have some other meeting. Maybe I'll meet a friend. We have a gallery opening to be attended. I'll visit a gallery or socialize in the night. You're meeting someone for a dinner at a restaurant. So the entire sequence of these different meetings in a day, happenings in a day, call for different kind of clothing. But I think black, can do well. It's a safe, basically, choice for any kind of occasion. So it works there as well. Also, I was struggling with this idea of colors. I'm quite sensitive to colors. Being an artist, you have these different ideas of what colors stand for and how they make you feel. So every morning it used to be a challenge for me to decide what to wear today, and whether the combination I'm wearing is right or wrong, and it kind of goes on and on. So there have been instances where I've dressed up, I've walked out of the house, gone almost like a kilometer, and then decide that no, this is not the right thing I should wear today. And I come back and I change it, and people at home would think that this guy is crazy, and what the hell is this? And I didn't have a way to explain them that, because it doesn't really feel right. Now, these kind of struggles, I think the black clothing has put an end to these kind of clothing struggles, because it's a lot of energy that I used to put into these things, which are not always so productive. So I don't really think about now what to wear, because I know what I'm going to wear. So it helps that way. Purchasing becomes easy. It's quite comfortable also, t-shirt and all that. It works as a formal, informal occasions also. So yeah, that's the whole idea behind black clothing.
Very well. So Hetal, you've also written books to contribute about the kind of stories that you've come out with. So can you talk about that?
There is I have, it's in a manuscript form right now. The book is called Kala, where Kala is in Hindi and Kar is in English. So Kar, like the CAR, car, the art on the cars is what I've been practicing for last more than 12 years now at Kalagoda Festival. And I have 11 different cars that I have done. So the fact that these cars appear only at the festival and people get to experience it only for those 9 days or other, temporary places where it is shown, and then the artwork is kind of destroyed. I thought, every car has, the idea behind every car has begun with an incident from my life. And they have a clear cut, very interesting stories behind how the idea came into being. When I was sharing these ideas, I found that people are really interested, and a lot of students also get insights from how a particular concept is developed. It's a very organic way, but there's a method to that madness as well on developing a concept and the conceptual art. So this is something I'm explaining that very first car till date, the last car. So basically, the last car that I did was based on it's based on COVID, and it happened right in the middle of pandemic. There was a nice tech where I exhibited it. So the car was covered with ashes, and it was called ashtray. So this is usually a word play in my artwork. So it's called ashtray, and the H of the ashtray is kind of come down. So humanity is kind of gone down, and it also reads as gone astray. So humanity is gone astray, sort of a thing. So this whole, I mean, during the lockdown, I realized that the greed for land, the human is kind of trying to occupy the entire globe, which also belongs to the other species now. It somehow feels that they don't really have space now. They don't have space to create their environment because human being is encroaching into all sorts of different terrains, water, I mean, mountains, everything. And so this talks about this kind of a greed, and it also says that it's also gone beyond Earth. So there are funny stories about people actually buying plots on the moon. So so this piece actually talks about how crazy human being has gone, and if we don't stop here, so yeah, so nature will find its own. Basically, nature will find its own way to destroy us. So that's what it talks about, the last one.
So you've already talked about craziness in people. There's also got to be some kind of craziness within you as well when you actually think about a specific idea. How do you know? I want to know what is the kind of thinking, because you have deadline challenges. You need to do justice to the work. There's a lot of history to it. So where do you bring in all that kind of thinking and then translate into your art piece? So what is the way you think?
Yeah. So, the interesting part about my work is that it actually happens in the canvas of my mind first. So, the whole struggle that you talked about right now actually happens in my mind first, and then it is translated into a physical object. So, there is a hell lot of thinking which goes on making decision and meeting the deadlines and all that. The way I address things is in two phases. So even my company is called Art Lab. So it's got two distinct, like you have the left brain and the right brain. I believe any activity, whether it is creative or normal, has a combination of these two brains, where your left brain is very methodical and the right brain is the creative and the whimsical. Similarly, my company is called Art Lab, where the word art talks about the infinite possibilities, the colors and stuff like that. The word lab talks about being very methodical, scientific, and all that. So my work combines these two things together. But first comes the art. So any creative solution that I'm looking for, I let the mind go wild and collect these different connections and different ideas, be it logical or illogical. I try to collect them together for that particular project. I don't try to judge them initially, but let them, the right brain or the artsy side, run wild first. It's all gathered together, and then you switch into a completely different gear, where you start analyzing these ideas and see what fits in to create a kind of a interesting, logical, communicatable sort of fit. It's like a divergent thinking first, where you diverge your thoughts and collect whatever you get from space, bring it into one, bring it on the table, and then you think very convergently in a very focused way, and try to relate it with what you want to actually communicate. So it's kind of a convergent or divergent kind of a thinking, which brings in these creative ideas and also refines it. It's like a diamond. Raw diamond is found first, and then it has to be cut in a finer way to actually get uh, you know the whole grandeur of peace. So my work includes these two phases, and I work a lot on the second phase also. I work on the narration also, how I'm going to explain that piece to people is something I actually work on. which a lot of visual artists don't feel the need to work on. But I feel that if I want to exhibit my work, if I want to show it to you, I should be able to communicate about it in a way that is clear, and it also inspires you, you know. So these are the two different phases that I work on.
So Hetal, to end it all up, our viewers are watching. What would you like to tell them on Trendz Talks?
On
Trendz Talks, you being here, what is your experience?
Yeah, so on Trendz Talk, I first of all I like the name Trendz Talk, because I find the word trend existing almost everywhere, and even in art, which I used to believe that art is not always a trendy subject, but there are trends in art as well. And you try to create something timeless, but there is an element of trend also evolving into the culture. So balancing these two things, that creating something which has timeless value and also it addresses the trend so that it becomes relevant to this particular generation, is what I've also been trying. So I like the word, Trendz Talk a lot. I would like to end the session with this thought that my effort now in the future is to integrate my life and art together. So the artists that I have been admiring, I've seen that there is a unison in thoughts, speech, and action. I have been finding it difficult to kind of get it all in one. So basically, what you think is what you speak, is what you act. When these three things come in line, I think there's a feeling of integrity, peace, and everything comes in place. So that. So basically, that's my effort, and I think this is the essence of what I'm trying to achieve.
Right, Hetal, it has been really very interesting talking to you, and thank you for joining us today. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you, Krishna.
Thank you.